2024 has officially reached its end, and this year we got a lot of movies. And in this video, we are going to be ranking those films. So, how about we start by looking at Kung Fu Panda. So, we have Po, right, and he's basically supposed to choose the next person to be the Dragon Warrior. Anyway, but while he's trying to decide, apparently Tai Lung would come back. But plot twist, it turns out it's actually just some shapeshifter who's impersonating Tai Lung. He's trying to steal all the powers of the previous villains. So he teams up with this wolf, and in the end they stop the chameleon, and he eventually decides to choose the wolf to be the next Dragon Warrior. And that was pretty much the movie. B tier. Next, let's talk about the movie which asked the impossible question. What if Big Monkey and Big Lizard punch other Big Monkey and other Big Lizard? Cinema. Yeah, so the film was basically just about Kong and Godzilla teaming up to face Scar. No, not that Scar, that Scar. Oh yeah, and Kong also gets a son, which he just, immediately uses to beat up some people. Put it in B tier. Moving on, let's talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, being someone who watched the original trilogy and actually really enjoyed them, I was really nervous for this film. But this movie was actually good. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the Caesar trilogy, but I think it is still a good film. A tier. Next, let's talk about the Garfield movie, which is basically a heist film where Garfield teams up with his dad to go steal some milk. He would also become the cat equivalent of a dragon. So, yeah, that happened. B tier. Next, we have Inside Out 2, which was great. So, in this film, Riley is now 13, and she has this thing called a sense of self. But then these new emotions come in and completely get rid of it. Specifically, anxiety being the main one who's making all the decisions. Yeah, so old emotions would try and make it back to headquarters, but when they make it back, it's too late, because anxiety has caused Riley to have a panic attack, which just every animated studio seems to do nowadays. But luckily, instead of the old sense of self-helping, a new one is created, and Riley learns to have a new version of herself, S tier. Next, let's talk about Despicable Me 4. Yeah, anyway, so basically this cockroach guy basically just wants to absolutely murder Gru. This would cause the greatest superhero team of all time to fix it. That's right, it's the Mega Minions. And oh my god, is that Vector? Put it in B tier. Next, let's talk about the wild robot. Yeah, but the film's basic idea is that this robot has become a mother for this animal and has to teach it to fly, that way it can get out of here before winter. But she would eventually form a bond with him. However, she needs to make the sacrifice to instead go back to where she was supposed to go and keep the woods and all the animals in it safe. S tier. Moving on, let's talk about the new Paddington film, which I thought was a really peaceful film. The film is basically about Aunt Lucy going missing and Paddington trying to find her. But while trying to find Aunt Lucy, he eventually finds the home which he got separated from a long time ago. But he still decides to go back to London with the Browns because he decides that that is his true family. Esther, I actually really enjoyed this film. Next, let's talk about That Christmas, which is basically a Netflix Christmas film. In this film, basically three things happen. You've got this one kid getting annoyed at both his mum and his dad. You've got these parents who basically just get stuck in a van for the entire film. And you have his two twins arguing. And that's pretty much what happens in the film. I'll put it in A tier, it was actually pretty enjoyable. Next, we have Muasa, which is basically the origin story for Mufasa, Simba's dad who was in The Lion King. And now this movie is actually pretty okay. I mean, it's nowhere near as good as The Lion King, but it is still decent in my opinion. I think I put it at the bottom of B. Next up, we have Sonic 3, which is basically, should have been called Shadow, because it's mainly about Shadow. Yeah, so we have Shadow, who was a meteorite which crashed down to Earth, but while he was down there being experimented, he would find a friend called Maria. However, she would die, so he would just want to absolutely obliterate the world. Yeah, but Sonic would eventually convince him that revenge isn't the way to go, and so he would sacrifice himself to save the world. Put it in A tier. And finally, we have Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Foul, which is basically about Wallace becoming obsessed with inventing. That is until Ferris McGraw would hack into his newest invention, which is a smart gnome. He would then use these gnomes to try and steal a precious diamond. However, luckily, Wallace and Gromit would be able to thwart his plan. A tier. Anyway, here is my finished tier list, and which means that Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot were my favourite films of 2024. I couldn't pick between them. But what was your favourite film of 2024? But this is the end of the video. If you enjoyed, then please subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.